Okay, so when we are doing enrolling and we're meeting with a new franchise, we could potentially have it go two different ways. One could be where we are doing a group presentation, which I do kind of like. But whenever you do a group presentation, you have to be extremely confident in the way that you're going to present this information. Because if you are unsure of yourself or you're not confident in what you're saying, you can lose the entire group. It can very easily sway one way or the other, right? So if you have a naysayer in the middle of your group and um, they are vocal about that, then you can lose the entire group at the same time. Does that make sense? So you want to be very, very confident in what you're saying, and you have to have a good personality. Hey, can you not eat that? Like having a baby, like a real child. It's like ridiculous. What? I know she's a toddler. She's in her terrible threes or something. I don't know what's happening. Um, Okay, so in a group presentation, I will give you kind of a spiel and I also will have a recording for that. But when you're meeting with a group, you want to have a lot of high energy. You want to be very engaging. You want to acknowledge all of the great things about our program. So you're going to acknowledge that, the DM here has set up some additional benefits for you guys at no cost. This is going to be great. Why is it great? Let's talk about it. This is going to be all in addition. So we want to make sure that everybody gets set up with those. In addition, here's some other things that we can talk about that are all at group discounted rates. And then you want to hit on the highlights of those so that whenever you're done with that group presentation, you can switch directly into meeting with them one-on-one. And then they can say, yeah, I was interested in that. Yeah, I was interested in that, instead of having to do the whole spiel for each person. That's the other alternative, is where you're going to go through the whole spiel with every single person. Okay. The group presentation isn't that much different from what I do individually. It's just a little bit more high energy because you're talking to a group. You want to be funny. You want to tell jokes if you can. Um, and you just want to be engaging. You have to be careful. If you're super boring, they're going to tune you out and they're not going to want to sit with you. Right. So not that any of us are super boring, but that's what I'm throwing out there. Okay. So let's talk about our enrollment booklet. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen so you guys can kind of see this. When I sit down with somebody, I'm going to show them this employee booklet. And when I'm doing an employee presentation, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give them the booklets, okay, so that they have that in front of them. And when I'm doing a group presentation, I don't give them anything else besides this booklet, okay? The only reason that you would give them anything else is if they purchase that policy, then you can give them a folder and your card and whatever else, okay? Um, when I'm looking at this sheet, I'm going to be looking at giving them some background about my company, okay? Especially if this is a first enrollment, you want them to be confident that we are a reputable company. Sometimes you'll hear me say, like at a re-enrollment, okay, you already know who we are, so this is some great information about our company. You can read it whenever you have some free time, or you can read it whenever you have insomnia, which is funny whenever it's a re-enrollment because they've already heard the original spiel. When you're first enrolling somebody, you want to make sure that they are confident that you are capable of this information. Who the heck is Globe Life Liberty National, and why would I trust them with my money? So you can say, you know what, we just partnered with your company, but we've been protecting American families for over 120 years. And the biggest thing to me is that we actually pay our claims. So I think that's really important that we focus on that, because there's a lot of insurance companies out there that don't pay their claims. And so this is a really important thing that we can say, yes, we absolutely do pay on our claims. Hi, Tony.
I just popping in. I don't. Oh, I just kicked the dog.
That was
Sorry.
mean.
I don't have anything. Just kind of a strange day. I appreciate everybody's.
All right, so then we're going to start with that. We're going to talk about the history of our company. It doesn't have to take very long, but you want to establish why they should pay attention to you. And then I just skip that page because, I mean, if they ask you why do we sponsor Dallas Cowboys, you can say we're based in Texas. And my thing whenever I'm talking about that in interviews is it's pretty cool that we have the same life insurance for my family, for our clients, that focuses and for protects the Dallas Cowboys. They're multi-million-dollar athletes. They're definitely worth more money than I am or my kids are. So that's kind of cool. Okay. But I don't really bring that up in my group presentation. The important part that I'm going to bring up in my group presentation and whenever I'm talking to our employees is that DM, owner, whoever set up two benefits that are at absolutely no cost to you. And this is it. You get these regardless of participation in anything else. Okay. So this is our highlight for what we're talking about. You want to really make this a big deal. Okay. And you want to say no cost, not free. Why? Because the word free makes people think there's a catch to it. Okay. Whenever we say no cost, they have to think a little bit harder about it. And they don't automatically think there's a catch. Now, I will say this, if you have a business owner or somebody who gives you a hard time, oh, nothing's free in this world, there's definitely a catch. I have no problem with explaining to people why that this is at no cost to them. Okay. If it's the business owner, I'm going to explain to them, absolutely, I totally get it. Most insurance companies are going to give you a pen with our name on it. They're going to give you a stuffed duck. They're going to give you a notepad. We don't spend our money on that kind of stuff. And the whole reason that people get those promotional objects and products from those companies is so that you can entice somebody to come and sit down with them. Right? Oh, well, if you come sit with me, you get a free pen, or oh, that's cool, you get a lollipop, or whatever it is, right? Well, that is what this intention is. This is to get your people to sit down and talk to me. But instead of me giving them a pen or a notepad, I'm going to give them some life insurance. We're a life insurance company. And if we really get down to the nitty gritty, if they're fighting with you on it, then you can say, how many of those do you think my company actually pays out if we give these out to billions of customers? Because it's annually renewable. And that is way less than what we would spend on promotional products if everybody had to hand out a $10 notepad and pen and stuffed duck, right? So there's nothing wrong with saying that to people. Like, you're right. This is what my company does instead of the promotional products, so that your people will sit down in front of me so that I can talk to them about our other products. Okay. There's nothing wrong with saying that. They want you to be, if they're fighting you on it, they want you to be direct and tell them what's going on. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about whenever we're talking to the individual. Perfect. I'm so glad that you could sit down with me, Christy. I'm going to build a little bit of rapport with her as soon as she sits down so that I can build that relationship up. Okay. So how long have you worked here? Okay, great. Now, Christy, are you married? Do you have any kiddos? That's awesome. What are your kids into? You're just building a little bit of rapport. Why am I asking those questions? Because it's going to help me with my needs assessment. And also whenever I get to this accidental death policy, you ask them, are you married? No. Do you have any kids? No. Okay, great. So it's only $3,000 for you, right? It's kind of awkward. I've done that myself, but it is awkward to say that. Oh, perfect. So usually I insert something like, oh, nice. You're living your best life. I wish I was doing that, right? Kids are expensive, or husbands are weird, right? I don't usually come up with something like silly, because I got to that point where I was like, oops, I got myself into an awkward position there. So if I ask before I get to this page, Christy, how long have you been working here? What's your favorite part about working here? Are you married? You got any kiddos? What's your favorite hobby? What'd you do this weekend? Blah, 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 whatever. And then I get to this accidental death policy. Then I can be like, okay, so there are two things that Reggie has set up for each employee here. The first one is going to be this accidental death policy that's going to cover you for $3,000. It's going to cover your husband, Ed, for $3,000. And then it's going to cover each of the kids for $1,000 up until the age of 26. After that, if they're independent children, then we can get them on their own policy for that $3,000. It's just different because we need their social. Okay. The other thing that we provide to you at absolutely no cost, just for sitting down with me today, is this no cost health savings discount card. Now, this is on top of your health insurance. Christy, do you take the health insurance through ABC Plumbing? She'll say yes or no. Whatever the answer is, you say, great, this is going to work on top of that. Or if she says, I don't have any insurance at all, great, this is going to help you because you don't have any insurance. Okay. I have state Medicaid. Great. This is going to be on top of that, because state Medicaid will cover all of their prescriptions, but they definitely do not always cover everything for vision, and they don't cover everything for chiropractic. So it doesn't really matter what their answer is, but it's important that we ask this question here to find out what their health insurance is before I get to pitching accident plan, cancer plan, life insurance, because if they're on state Medicaid, guess what I cannot offer? Accident plan. I can't offer that. So I don't want to offer accident plan. Then they tell me they're on state Medicaid, and I'm like, oh, just kidding. Let me pull that right back. Cancer endurance is okay to have. So is critical illness. It does say, are they covered on there? But the reason that we don't cover them on accident plan is because, generally speaking, if somebody has an accident and they're on state Medicaid or Medicare, there is no out-of-pocket costs because they're going to cover the accident, right? They don't always cover everything for a critical illness or cancer. But if they cover it and they have an accident plan with us and we send, like we get the UBO4, we get the itemized bill, and on the itemized bill, it says state Medicaid or whatever, Sunshine, whatever it's called, depending on the state. If it says that on the UBO4, it will show that there's no out-of-pocket costs. And so instead of them sending a check to the insured person, it sends a check to the hospital, which is sent to state Medicaid. I have no control over that. And that's based on the paperwork that comes from the hospital. So that's why we ask it here, you guys, so that you don't have to ask them, like, are you on state Medicaid? Because people are insulted, right? And then if they ask that, if you ask that and they're like, they feel awkward or whatever, I always am like, great, that's awesome. I'm really glad that you're getting some help, okay? Because they're a single mom or they're a lower income family or whatever it is. Like, you want to say that's great, whatever it is, okay? So you're going to encourage them, but that's stocking that information away. Like, I know that they have kids. I know that they've got a husband. I know that they're a single mom. I know they're on state Medicaid. I can't offer an accident plan, whatever, okay? So I'm getting information while I'm talking to them about those things. Everybody cool on those? So we talk about those two introductory offers, and then we switch over and we're going to go to the computer. Okay. So I think everybody except for Tian has done no cost benefits in the computer, right? Jericho, have you done your no cost benefits? Okay. And Michelle, you've done your no cost benefits. Just thumbs up. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to have you meet with us and we'll do a no cost benefits after this so that we can keep going, if that's okay.
Yes,
yeah.
please.
Okay. All right, cool. So we talk about the introductory offers. We're super pumped. We're excited. We transition over to the computer side, okay? And we're going to get all of their information. This is where you're going to ask for spouse. You're going to ask for children. You're going to ask for their beneficiary, okay? Why is it important to ask for their beneficiary now, especially if they're a single person? Because we're going to use that later whenever we talk about life insurance, okay? Because if they're a single person, they're a young person, they might be like, oh, I don't really need life insurance. I'm 20, nothing's going to happen to me. My parents have got it, whatever the case might be, okay? So you're asking that question. You do not want to get to the end after you've talked, and you've talked yourself out of it. You don't even have their no cost benefits that they can see that. Because regardless if they buy something from you this time, potential is if you've built a good relationship and you've made it no pressure, they will buy from you next time. Okay, sometimes that's how it works. You have to build that relationship with people and you have to build the trust. So by them getting their no cost health discount card, by them getting their accidental death policy, that will show them, oh, I didn't get charged for anything. She wasn't lying. It is no cost because I work here. Okay. After I've got those set up and I've gone through all the screens, then I'm going to say, okay, so remember, I already told you this, but Reggie has set up some additional group discounted benefits. Okay, now these are really, really great because they are permanent and portable. That's really important because remember whenever you went from ABC Trucking to ABC Plumbing, when you left ABC Trucking, Christy, you didn't get to keep any of your benefits, right? Right. Okay, so then whenever you came over to ABC Plumbing, you had to start over. Well, the great thing about these benefits that Reggie set up is that they're permanent and portable. That means whenever you leave ABC Plumbing, regardless if it's next month, next year, or you retire from here, you get to take these with you. And they're permanently locked in based on your age today. Okay, we all know that we're only going to get older. And we all know that everything just keeps going up in cost. Okay. We've all lived long enough to notice what happens to the gas prices. So if I told you that you could lock in your costs for gas, milk, loaf of bread, I'm sure you would want to do that. Okay. That's exactly what Reggie did for you guys on these other benefits. Now, then we're going to ask, are there any health concerns that I need to know about? We want to ask that before we go into pitching products. Okay. Any health concerns that I need to know about, Christy, for you or for Ed? Any prescriptions that you're supposed to be taking on a daily basis, whether you take them or if you were just prescribed them? And they say, no, we're healthy as a horse. Perfect. So no cancer diagnosis, no heart attack or stroke, no insulin dependent diabetes. You guys have high blood pressure. Even though they said, no, I'm perfectly healthy, I'm still going to list those couple of things off. You're looking for those big tickets. You're looking for heart attack and stroke. You're looking for cancer. You're looking for high blood pressure. Why am I looking for those things? Because it may disqualify them from different products. Okay. So if they have had a heart attack or stroke, if they have been diagnosed with cancer, they can't get those products. Okay. If you have somebody that's like, oh yeah, I had a kidney transplant, they are automatically disqualified from having the critical illness plan, because that's for a transplant, right? You can't have insulin dependent diabetes and get the critical illness plan. Okay. So those are all those healthcare questions. Until you know that, because you don't know all those background questions and the underwriting questions, look for the big four: heart attack and stroke, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure. Okay. It's not saying that we can't give them anything. It just means that I need to be discriminatory of what I can pitch. You do not want to pitch something and then be like, oops, sorry, I got to take that away. Right. Oh, sorry, you don't qualify for that. Or you just pitched them life insurance at the lowest group term rate and they have had cancer within the last 10 years. Right. You don't want to do that, because then you're like, okay, so just kidding. It's going to be 14 times more expensive, right? So when they tell you that, you're prepared ahead of time. They can be like, oh, well, yeah, I did have cancer back in 2001, but it's all cleared up. Wow, that's really great. I would have never known. Okay. Oh, well, I did have cancer. My wife had cancer 3 years ago. Okay, great. How's she doing? Okay. So you're going to build rapport off of that. And then you can still transition to what you're going to try to sell. Okay. So then when we get to the needs planner, we're talking about that. Hey, do you have any kind of health concerns? Anything that I need to know about? No, everybody is healthy. Perfect. So Christy, do you and Ed already have your life insurance taken care of? Yes, we have 4 different policies. It's a whole life plan and it's $1 million. Everybody knows that it's not a whole life plan, right? It's not a whole life plan for $1 million. I pay $20 a month, right? We know that that's not actually what it is. So then you can try to explain that to them. Okay, well, generally speaking, usually what we see is very, very high premiums for a whole life plan. What you may have is a really long-term policy. No, I'm sure it's a whole life. Okay, I'm not going to argue with them. So then I'm going to transition. If they have a bunch of life insurance, then maybe I'm going to talk to them about having a policy specifically for funeral and final expenses. Okay, now I think that's great. I think it's great, Christy, that you have all these big policies, because she might be thirsty. It's really great that you have all these big policies, because you're covering your business, you're covering your kids going to college, you're covering the vehicles. But you know what happens if you take that big, huge policy to the funeral home is that they're going to actually charge a lot more for your funeral, because they see that budget of how much life insurance you have. If you have $100,000 policy, guess how much your funeral is going to cost? A heck of a lot more than it needs to. So what we recommend is having a smaller policy, 15, 20,000. That'll cover just the funeral. And then that $100,000 policy, or whatever they have, that goes to your family, which is the entire point of the policy, right? It's to help your family, to help cover the cars, to help cover college. So you're not saying, oh, they have enough life insurance, I'm not even going to pitch it. You just need to know how to pitch it. Does that make sense? Okay, because ours is special and you want to be complimentary on whatever they have. That's awesome. You already have life insurance. Great. What kind is it? When did you get it? When does it expire? Ask lots of questions. I don't know. My husband does that. Okay, perfect. Well, let me give you some information, because the information never hurt anybody. I'm still going to pitch what I want to pitch, regardless of if they know what's going on. Now, maybe it'll be a little bit harder because they don't want to make the decision, but at least I'm going to make sure that they get information. And then I'm going to try to follow up with that spouse later. Okay. All right, perfect. They say I've got all the life insurance, and Christy says, I don't even want to hear about it. Well, I'm going to give you the information anyway. You can take it home. But what else about our living benefits? The other half of what we do are our living benefits. So, Christy, if cancer were to strike you and somebody in your family, would you have enough money to cover medical expenses and cover your income while you were out? What about for a heart attack or a stroke? And then even for an accident, do you have any kind of living benefits set up for you and for your family? Some cancer protection, heart attack and stroke protection, accident protection. She's going to say yes or no. Perfect. I'm glad that you have that. Do you have it through Aflac? Do you have it through Colonial? I don't really even know. Okay, well, let's talk about it, right? You want to ask as many questions as you can. If they say no, then the next question would be, well, what runs more in your family? More cancer, more heart attack, stroke, neither, both. It's incredibly important for you to say neither or both. Why? Because if you say what runs more in your family, cancer or heart attack and stroke, they feel like they have to choose one, and people get real salty about it. Like, well, nothing runs in my family. But if you give them neither or both, then they're like, Oh, well, actually, it's very strange. It's like psychology of like the way people think. If you corner them, that they have to choose something. Well, if I give you neither, then you can be like, no, everybody's perfectly healthy. Well, great. I'm glad everybody's perfectly healthy. Or sometimes they'll be like, yeah, both. I'm like, no, the answer is neither. You're supposed to be healthy. And they're like, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to say that to the insurance lady. I'm like, no, actually, we've got coverage for that. So let's talk about it. Okay. So that needs planner is going to help you figure out what are we pitching. I always pitch life unless I have like I'm telling you what I pitch for a brand new person, right? We're not talking about re-enrollments. Brand new person, I'm always going to pitch life, and I'm always going to pitch the accident plan unless they're on Medicaid, and I'm going to pitch cancer or critical. Generally speaking, majority of the time it's cancer, unless they are very, very adamant that cancer doesn't run in their family, it's more heart attack and stroke. Okay, so my go-to three is going to be life, accident, cancer. And then I'm going to give them that information while I'm talking to them. Does that make sense? Everybody cool up to this point of how do I figure out what I'm going to talk to them about? Okay, so you have to have, it has to be conversational, yeah? You have to be talking to that person to kind of get to know them. You're building trust the way you're doing that. You're asking questions about the kids while you're filling in their paper, the screens to say the whole family, all the things, okay? All right, so let's talk about pitching the life. Stop it. What a brat. I don't think it is, but even still, quit it. Okay, so the next couple of pages, I would bring this up in a group presentation and I would talk to them about, you know, in general, the cost of a funeral nowadays is between 10 and 15,000. Our booklet says it's about 25. I'm not sure that I agree with that, but that's a lot of money. And does your beneficiary who you just listed have that kind of money in an emergency situation? I mean, I'm a mom. So do I have access to that kind of money? Yes. Do I necessarily want to spend it on a funeral? No. That's why we have life insurance. Okay. So as a young adult, you might be in your 20s and your 30s. Now is the time to make sure that that is taken care of. That is your job. You're an adult. It's not your job, or it's not your mom's job to make sure that she takes care of that anymore. Right. That's what we're talking to a younger person. I'm not saying you need to leave $1 million to somebody, but you should be responsible for enough for your funeral. Okay. And then we skip over that one. In case anybody cares, this is the freedom of choice certificate. They didn't used to put this in the booklet. What this means is if you take out life insurance with Globe Life, that the person that is insured can choose if that policy goes directly to their beneficiary or if it's assigned directly to a funeral home. So what that means is, let's say you have a $15,000 policy. I signed it away to the funeral home. That means that that first cost of that $15,000 goes to the funeral home to pay for the funeral. Anything left over would go to the beneficiary. Okay. This can sometimes happen if you have a family member that is your beneficiary. Like I'm going to use a suggestion of, I had an older gentleman, his daughter was the beneficiary, but she had a lot of poor life choices. So he assigned it to his funeral home first to make sure the bill was paid, and then she got the leftover. It was like $3,000 left over. She was pretty hot about it, but that's his policy. He paid for it. That's what this is saying. Okay, so you can decide how much of the money goes and then where it's going to go. But that page does pull out of our booklets. Okay, so if anybody's asking you what does that mean, that's what it is. That's what that says. Okay. Okay, so let's say we're gonna pitch life, okay? I'm talking about life insurance, and when I pitch life, I do it a very specific way, okay? Let's assume that this person has, it doesn't matter if they have life or not. Remember, I'm gonna pitch it regardless, okay? So, okay, so the first thing that we want to talk about is this really amazing life insurance that Reggie has set up for you guys. This is the best life insurance you can get through an employer, and I say that because it is permanently locked in. It never changes in cost on you. And then I'm going to underline where it says premium never increases, and the face value, the coverage amount never decreases. Okay. So that's over here on this right-hand side. Also, the first 50,000 of your coverage is pre-taxed, and that means that it comes out before your taxes. It's actually going to save you about 25% off of the cost whenever you're working here at ABC Plumbing, okay? Because you don't have to pay taxes on it. Okay, that's huge. The coverage lasts until your 101st birthday. There is no other policy on the market that does that. We also have the option to be paid up at age 65. Now, just for frame of reference, if the person is under the age of 40, I am not even going to look at 100. I'm always going to pull up paid up at 65. I don't even give them the option of paid 100 unless they're like, wow, that's really expensive, because it's not. After the age of 40, you kind of have to have discretion about what type of industry are you in. Okay, where do they work? Because you want to kind of consider how much are they making. Now, I'm not making a judgment call. I'm saying here are our options. We can always go down from there. But whenever I'm talking to a younger person, I don't even tell them that they can go down from there. When it's an older person or they make less per hour, then I will say, now I'm going to show you the Cadillac version first, and then there are downsizes. Okay. But this is the one I'm going to recommend. Paid up at age 65. That means that you're going to have that coverage for another 35 years with no bill. Even if it was $1 a week for 35 years, that's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money. And they're going to say, yeah, that's a lot of money. Okay, so why wouldn't you pay it up? Then you can be done. Okay. And it's portable. So it goes with you whenever you leave this job. Okay. So this is the best life insurance you can get. Now, I'm not telling you that you need to leave $1 million to Ed, but you do need to have enough there for funeral and final expenses. Okay. If they already have life insurance, I've already explained to them why they need to have a duplicate policy for just funeral and final expenses. Then I'm going to break out my binder and I'm going to flip to the page that I need to flip to. Again, I'm going to start with paid up at age 65 with the built-in accidental death benefit and premium waiver. Okay, that's the most expensive option. So I'm going to start right there. And then I'm going to find their age. Depending on what their age is, again, if it's less than age 40, I'm 100% going to show them what it looks like until they get to age 55 or 65 or 75, depending on what sheet I'm on, right? Okay, I'm just going to throw this out here, Christy. Look at this. Okay, if you waited until it was time for you to retire, here's what you would be paying for even the smallest amount. You can use whatever. I use either 2,500 or I use the 50,000 because it's very simple to find. It's the first one or the last one, right? Okay, then you're going to slide it up to their age. Now, remember, Christy, I'm really bad at math. How old are you? And then she tells me, and then I slide it up and I'll be like, look, this is how much cheaper it is for you because of your age bracket. Okay, you're comparing, right? So you're going to show them. Now on this sheet, I have from the very basic, this is enough to cover a cremation, up to 50,000. Now this is the first amount that's pre-taxed. So that's all that we can cover pre-tax. But to the other side of this page is up to 100,000. Okay, so that's the most that I can write for you at a time. Now, what I say, and maybe you don't say this, people that enroll, but I always say, now most people don't do more than the first 50,000 because that's the pre-tax. We want to max out our pre-tax savings. Okay. I specifically don't like writing huge policies because when you have a huge policy, then it's a huge chargeback as well. So if it's a big policy, I really, really make sure that they understand what that cost is because I don't want it to charge back later. Okay. So then we're looking at that page and I'm going to sit back and I'm gonna be like, so which of those options make the most sense to you? And then I shut my mouth. First person who talks loses. So I take a drink or I type something on my computer and I wait. And if most of the time, I would say 85% of the time, they're going to choose something because I've already built the value and I've already explained to them why. And we've already talked about how much a funeral costs. You can even ask them, have you ever had to pay for a funeral? Oh yeah, my uncle, we had to pay this, or my brother, and she didn't have any life insurance. So it was all this out of pocket, whatever. They'll tell you their story. Okay. And then you can be like, well, how much was it? Yeah, it was like $12,000. Gosh, that's a lot of money. And I mean, 20 years from now, it's going to be even more, right? So you're going to have that conversation. Okay. If they say, most of the time, if they don't say anything at all, and they're just like hemming and hawing, they might look at you like, I don't really know. I don't really know. I don't know what to choose, especially if they're like, this is very unfamiliar to them. Then you could be like, well, do you want my suggestion? As a licensed professional, would you like my suggestion? And then they'll say yes. And then I usually say most people start between 10 and 15,000, 20,000 maybe. But remember, we come back every year, so you can always add to it. The key thing is, if you can, you want to lock in your age because you're never younger or healthier. And then you can always add to it. So I am not going to jump to that big number. Okay, I'm going to go right down the middle. We've already explained to them what the cost of a funeral is. I've explained to them the value, and then they could be like, oh no, I was thinking more like whatever. Okay. Usually they have an idea of what that looks like in their brain. Cool. Okay. I don't talk about income protection or the modified life specifically unless I have to. Modified life is if you have somebody that said, I've had cancer in the last 10 years, I've had a heart attack, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Basically, what I do is I will explain the Career Life Plus as a whole life plan. Okay. If I have somebody with a health problem, I'm going to include them on this page because it's very nicely on this page. Okay. And our modified life is a whole life plan. The only difference between the whole life and the career, or I'm sorry, the modified life and the career life is that the modified life doesn't pay the full face value for the first 3 years if the death is health related. If it's an accident, it pays like normal. Okay. But people can read that. And whenever I'm talking to them, I want to focus on the positives. Hey, you know what? I realize that you have had cancer, but the great thing is that we will still cover you. Oh, it looks like you've already had 2 heart attacks. The great news is Globe Life will still cover you. Okay. Because a lot of times they've tried to get life insurance and they can't. So they know, like if I sat down in front of somebody, I know I'm overweight. Like it's not new information to me. I see myself in the mirror. I know I've had cancer. I know I've had heart attacks, right? These people are not unfamiliar with their health situation. So you just need to focus on the positive. Hey, well, the great news is I can actually cover you. Oh, you can? That's awesome. Yeah. So here's how it works. Okay. Career Life Plus is what we pitch for kids and grandkids. Remember, if they're kids, they have to be under the age of 20 in order to do that. If they're kids, I'm grandkids too. They have to be under the age of 20 to do that program. If they're older than that, we have to do it through the individual side. Okay. Still the same rates, but they just won't do it through worksite. Career Life Plus, this is our whole life plan. Okay. So Christy, the great thing about this plan is that the policy actually protects your kids all the way through age 121. I don't know. Maybe they're going to do some like weird science advancements that they can live forever. I don't want to live that long, but sure, live forever. It's a permanent and portable policy, just like yours is, but this policy also gains a cash value. Okay. So now the difference on this one is that on yours, on your term policy, if you don't die before you turn 101, there is no return on that. Right? Okay. But on a whole life policy, if you die, or I mean, excuse me, if you don't die before you turn 121, then there would be cash value that you could withdraw from. Okay. Yep. Okay. So this is very similar to the Gerber Grow Up plan. You probably have heard about that. The only difference is that this one can be payroll deducted. Okay. And then they also will have options to purchase more insurance every 2 to 4 years. And then also whenever they become an adult, because they've already guaranteed their insurability. Okay. They don't have to prove their insurability once they have our policies. That's our life insurance. Who has questions about how to pitch life insurance and how it works?
So one difference between the 2 plans is that the modified life just paid up in 20 years. And the other
Yes.
paid up after at 65 years.
Yes. So I don't know if you guys could hear that, but in modified life, whenever you get that policy, it is paid up in 20 years unless the person is over the age of 70, then it's paid up by the time that they turn 90 years old. So whatever that difference is between their age and 90. And then on a Career Life Plus, you pay on it for 65 years before it builds all the cash value. Now on a Career Life Plus, if they die before age 65, it pays the full face amount, regardless of the death. Okay. As soon as that policy takes effect, it pays the full face amount, regardless of the death. Modified life, if it's a health death, cancer, heart attack, stroke, old age, whatever, then it pays whatever premiums have been paid in plus 10%. Starting the 4th policy year, it pays the full face value. If you have somebody that dies from an accident, starting day 1, it pays the full face amount. The likelihood of you needing to know all of that information is low. Okay. If you have somebody whenever you're first enrolling that has health problems and you ask that question, I mean, we're talking about people that either answer yes or it's quite obvious that they have health problems. If the dude rolls up, breathing heavy and he's pulling his oxygen tank, we need to be cautious. Yeah. you don't want to pitch him group term 65 because he's going to get underwritten and then they're going to be pissed off and then they're going to cancel it. Okay. Charge back. Don't do it. All right, let's talk about the others. I'm going to focus on 3 of these. Cancer is on the next page. Okay, so this is my top hitter. I will pitch this to almost everybody. So usually what I'll say is, Christy, I don't know about you, but you mentioned that you have a lot of cancer that runs in the family. Who in your family has had to suffer? If you don't mind me asking, who's gone through cancer? Oh, it was my grandma and my aunts, and it was, blah, 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 all the different people. Oh my gosh, I'm really sorry. So, did everybody survive or are they still battling? Okay, you're going to have some rapport building on there. Okay, so one of the reasons that I'm asking you that is because I really, really love our cancer endurance plan. This is by far my favorite plan outside of our life insurance. I have it for my family. I don't really have a whole lot of cancer that runs in my family, but my dad was diagnosed 3 years ago with some prostate cancer. And he actually called me after he got the diagnosis and said, hey, you know what? Can I get that cancer plan? And I'm like, Dad, no, you can't get it now that you've been diagnosed. So the reason I tell people that story is because you don't want them to hold off. Okay. Because if you get diagnosed, then I can't cover you anymore. The great thing about this cancer endurance plan is that it's going to cover you for the rest of your life. And unlike most cancer plans out there on the market, there's no limit to how much it pays out. Okay. So it's going to pay out amongst all of your treatments and procedures for the rest of your life, and it pays directly to you. It does not pay doctors and hospitals. Healthcare, my health insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, United Healthcare, that is what pays the doctors and hospitals. But this plan pays you. It's supposed to help cover your income. It's supposed to help cover your deductibles, out-of-pocket costs. So then they've got a little snapshot here. Okay, so it shows you first occurrence is $3,500. That only happens once. That's why it says no lifetime limit, right? Okay, and there's no check mark. That only happens the first time. And it does not count if they get diagnosed with the skin cancer, the basal squamous cell that they just scrape off. If they get melanoma, then it does count. Okay, on the brochure, it looks very deceiving on that sentence, so read it carefully. But skin cancer is covered by our cancer endurance plan on all of the procedures and treatments. It is just not covered for first occurrence benefit, the lump sum. Okay. So if you have to have outpatient surgery, if they have to scrape it off, if they have to give you like a radiation treatment, those are covered. We will process that claim. Okay. We just don't pay out that first occurrence lump sum on a skin cancer unless it's melanoma. Okay. Once you've had the first diagnosis occurrence, that's the only time that you get that. It doesn't matter if you had skin cancer, melanoma, and then liver cancer, and then stomach cancer. You don't get one for each type of cancer. It's just the first one. But you can have all of the treatments and procedures for whatever type of cancer. Okay. We also cover new and experimental treatments. We cover transportation. When they're looking at this, I will give them that breakdown if they purchase that plan. Okay. They do have coverage availability for just themselves. They can get it for just their spouse. They can get it for a single parent, so themselves and their kids. They can get it for the family. On a cancer endurance plan, you are paying the rate based on the oldest insured. So if I have the plan and I'm only covering myself and my kids, I'm the oldest. But if I cover my husband, he is the oldest. So it is based on the insured person's, the oldest person age that's insured on the team, on the plan. And when we write that policy and it issues on the management report, it will be issued in Brian's name. I will be the payer, but it would be in Brian's as the insured name. Okay. So when you're looking at a management report and it says Brian Grosh, not Diana Grosh, we have to look in Epic. Is it the family plan? Yes. The reason it says Brian's name is because he's oldest. Okay. So that's a little bit tricky on this one whenever you're doing that. The other thing that I'll bring up to people is our first diagnosis lump sum. Okay. So let's say Christy's like, yeah, a lot of cancer runs in my family, but I just don't believe in doing radiation or chemotherapy. I watched my grandma go through it. I won't do that. I just don't think it's good. Perfect. You know what? I have a girlfriend that's the same way. She does a lot of homeopathic stuff. So what we did was we actually set up this lump sum policy. Okay. When I'm doing a re-enrollment, I introduce this one as people were complaining that the $3,500 isn't enough to cover out-of-pocket costs and max out-of-pocket costs and deductibles. So they allowed for an increase. Okay. What this one does is you choose a benefit amount between 10 and 50,000, and then you get that lump sum at your first diagnosis. It happens one time. If you get the family plan, it's one time per person. So it's not first to the flag. So Brian gets 10,000, I get 10,000, Buddy gets 10,000, Teddy gets 10,000, whatever. But once it's gone, it's gone. Okay. You can have both if you want to. I do. I have 20,000 lump sum and the cancer endurance plan for my family just because it freaks me out. So that's what I do a lot whenever I'm at a re-enrollment and I'm upselling. I usually focus on cancer endurance the first time I talk to people, and then I can go back and upsell on the lump sum, but it's depending on what they are asking for, if they don't do treatments or whatever. Okay. If I'm talking about the critical illness protector, this is if they were very clear to me and said, no, cancer does not run in my family. It's more a heart attack, stroke, transplant, whatever. Okay. Then this is what I'm going to pitch to them. This is my least favorite of the ones that we have. In my opinion, it's very difficult to qualify to have it pay out. So it's not my first one that I'm going to pitch to people unless they specifically say it to me.
Makes no
On
sense.
this one, oh, sorry, Michelle, what?
Kind of freaked me out.
The heart attack one? You good, Michelle? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Sorry, babe. Okay, so critical illness protector works exactly like the lump sum cancer. However, there's no family plan. It's all individual. Okay. And we only cover people 18 years or older. They choose a benefit amount between 10 and 50,000. Once they get that payment paid out, then the policy is over with. You don't pay any premiums, but then there's no benefit either. Okay. We cover heart attack, stroke, kidney failure, organ transplant, total loss of eyesight, total loss of hearing. Again, this one is a little bit difficult to qualify for. If they have a small like TI, a mini stroke, if you will, it does not qualify on this plan. They will not pay out that benefit. Okay. It's difficult to actually get it to pay out, but this is one of our cheapest plans. So a lot of people will add that on later. Or again, if you have somebody that says heart stuff runs in their family. Last one is our accident protector max. Again, these are my top three I'm going to pitch is life, cancer, and then accident, especially if they have kids. Caveat to that is if they have Medicaid, you can't pitch that one. Okay. So accident plan, this one's going to pay you directly if you guys ever have an accident. So we're talking about broken bones, cuts that need stitches, a spider bite that gets infected, you slip and fall, you twist your ankle. We have to go to the emergency room or urgent care within 48 hours of that injury. You need to seek treatment within 48 hours. And then you can get this to be paid back to you. You're not going to call me from the hospital. You're going to process it just like you would for any kind of other health problem. And then you're going to be able to get a repayment reimbursement later from me. We will help you do that. If you get admitted to the hospital, it's additional $1,000. If you have to stay overnight in the state of Missouri, it's a graduated policy based on how long you've had the plan. In the state of Illinois, it's $300 a day regardless, right off the bat, and it doesn't increase from there. If they have to stay in the ICU, it doubles the daily benefit. If you have to have blood or plasma, if you have a broken bone, it all triggers. But all those benefits stack up, and then they pay directly to that insured person. If somebody's like, what about an air ambulance? An air ambulance is the same as a regular ambulance. You get $300. Okay. I realize that's not a lot, but this policy is not costs a lot either. It costs $2 a week in Illinois. It costs $3 a week in Missouri. This is not intended to replace their not intended to replace their health insurance. It's supposed to be supplemental. Okay. So we don't want them to be like, oh, I can cancel my United Healthcare because I have an accident plan. It's going to save me a lot of money. Yeah, it's going to save you a lot of money, but it's not going to pay out the way that you think it is. So this is not going to cover flu, bronchitis, well person visits, my shots for the year. It does not cover my son that just went to the hospital and had a migraine. It doesn't count for any of that. Okay. Because those are all health things, not an accident. Okay. And then they can cover just themselves. They can cover single parent. They can cover just their spouse. They can cover the family. If they cover themselves, it's a pre-tax benefit. The ones that are not pre-tax benefits are the lump sums. If it has cash value, it's automatically a post-tax. So your career life plus, your critical illness, and your cash cancer, if it does not include the employee, it also is post-tax. So if you're doing your spouse and then the kids, or just the spouse, it does not cover on pre-tax, okay?
So if he had got hit, he had baseball.
Then it would have been fine. If he had gotten hit, that's a good question. So Reggie just said, what if he got hit in the head with a baseball? And then it would have counted. I know, right? I know. It all depends on how it's coded at the hospital, right? Yeah, I did miss the boat. That could have covered a lot of medical bills. 3 trips to the ER in 24 hours. What the heck? Okay. The only other one that I will bring up is the ICU protector. This is not something that I pitch very frequently because it again is a little tricky to process these claims. The ICU plan is 1 or 2 units. 1 unit will pay $500 a day. 2 units will pay $1,000 a day. You have to be in the ICU for it to trigger, not the critical care unit, not the CCU. It does count if it's a NICU, like, because that's an ICU. Okay. If they go into the hospital in a regular hospital room, then they go to ICU for 3 days. Then they go to the regular hospital room after that. They will pay for the 3 days of ICU and they will pay for 3 regular days after that. So they'll match the days. Okay. If they have, this can be a health reason, it can be an accident reason. If you have the accident plan and the ICU plan and it's an accident and you go to the ICU, both plans will pay. I'm trying to think of anything else. This is also very, very inexpensive. It is a pre-tax benefit if the employee is covered. It's on the cancer endurance policy application. I think that's all on that one. Again, not something that I pitch a whole lot, but if you have somebody that has all the benefits, if you have somebody that's got a wife that's pregnant and they had trouble with their first pregnancy, if you have an older person that's concerned about COVID, those are where you might like bring it up, but it's definitely not one that I'm going to immediately pitch right off the bat.
There's no conditions, like if they have diabetes.
Good question. I would have to double check those answers. She asked if there was any pre-health concerns that would disqualify you. I do know that you cannot be on Medicaid as your only insurance to get this plan. You do have to have major health insurance to have the ICU plan. That is something that they've been enforcing. So let's say that you didn't ask that question and then they want the ICU plan, they're asking you about it, and then let's say they take it, we sell it to them, 2 years later they start to process a claim, they don't have any health insurance, they will decline to pay out on this plan, and then they will, if they want to cancel the plan, they can get reimbursed for their premiums, but that is a chargeback. So okay, did I cover? Yeah. No, you're right. But if they ask for all their premiums back, then it would.
Would it really?
Yeah, because they have to take the money now because they paid you for it. If they're going to pay back all of the premiums. If you just cancel the plan, then no. But if they pay back all the premiums, I've had that happen where it'll charge my account. What questions do you guys have about enrolling? I know that was a lot of information, but I did record it. And so you can go back and look